Hi there. Hello. Welcome back to the Pitch Grid. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. In this episode, we are going to cover a lot of. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Let's go grid side. For a lot of interesting NFL action has kind of settled down, let's say, but there are still like a few free agent signings or trades that kind of go under the, shall we say, radar. And I would say one that kind of surprised me was the Chargers adding Trey Lance on a 1 year deal. It's worth up to $6.2 million. And it's interesting because Lance has kind of been a project for most of his career. He was taken top three in the draft a few years ago by the Niners, and he just never really got a lot of time to play. Jimmy Garoppolo was always preferred to him. He did start for 4 games in one season, having a 2-2 record, 797 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 3 picks on 56 of 102 passing. But he got hurt, and that's when Brock Purdy stepped in, and Brock Purdy's star took off from there. It is currently still the starting quarterback for the Niners. So, why Lance? Well, he's kind of bounced around. Dallas, he was the backup. He was acquired by a fourth round pick in last year's draft in 2023 by the Cowboys, but he never saw a snap in 2023 and only spot duty in 2024, and really never hasn't really had much playing time since the season he got hurt. So this has to be an insurance move by the Chargers because of how often Justin Herbert gets hurt. And apparently, they are giving him the opportunity to compete with Taylor Heineke for the number 2 quarterback position. I'm not a huge fan of this move. I think it's kind of wasteful to spend 6.2 million perhaps on a quarterback that's barely played. Granted, Lance is a lot more mobile maybe than Heineke, though we don't know because he really hasn't played since that ankle injury. But Heineke has proven to be more of the effective game manager over his career, notably the time he was with the Commanders and took them to the playoffs where they lost to Tampa, and I think that was when Tampa went on to win the Super Bowl, or it might have been the year after. It's just a weird signing for the Chargers. Kind of shows how desperate they are to maybe find some good backup quarterback options in case Herbert gets hurt again. I mean, he usually has one injury per season, so it's not a bad idea. It just feels a little desperate to me. Another backup quarterback that was on the move, the Cowboys, right before this, apparently, they traded for Joe Milton from the Patriots. And this is an interesting move. I mean, now it kind of makes more sense. Now Lance has gone to the Chargers, but still, it's a young quarterback who's shown potential at the NFL level. Last offseason, the preseason, he really showed out. He really hasn't had playing time because now Drake May has kind of really shined in that spot and shown he can do some things. So I guess the Patriots are looking at a different direction in terms of the backup quarterback spot. I don't know what New England is thinking in that term, but it is an interesting move for Dallas considering that Joe Milton is probably the backup quarterback in Dallas behind Dak Prescott. So we'll have to see how that goes. The Raiders are going to cut a starting cornerback who has been part of that defense for a few years, Jack Jones. He was told after they attempted to trade him that the Raiders were going to cut him. He played 24 games with the Raiders after he was cleaned off waivers in 2023. He was a former New England Patriot. He played 16 games last year. He had a career best in tackles, passes defended, and interceptions, but he did give up 698 yards, 9 touchdowns, and a passer rating of 108.9 on 88 targets. So that's not ideal. It might be a good move. I have no idea what the Raiders' plans at corner are now. I'm sure they might be targeting someone in the draft or something like that. It would be interesting to know how old he is. I think he's somewhere around mid 20s, I would think. But corners have a very short shelf life, and it definitely seems like teams tend to move on really quickly from corners, especially if they don't prove themselves rather quickly. So that's kind of a disappointment for Jack Jones, who started off well in New England, and kind of has just fallen off since since he was cut by New England and signed off waivers by the Raiders. A retirement is also some of the news from the last week as Teron Armstead officially announced his retirement on Saturday. He had 12 years in the league. He's 33 years old, and he posted it on X. His statement was, "This was always more than a game to me, literally been my life. I look back at my entire journey and I walk away grateful, proud and excited, and at peace knowing I did it the right way. Full investment to maximize the blessings God gave me." He signed a 5-year, $75 million deal with the Dolphins in 2022, so he's foregoing the last 2 years of his deal. He was one of the bedrocks of that Dolphins starting offensive line. He was a third-round pick out of Arkansas Pine Bluff by the Saints in 2013. He has been one of the best offensive linemen in the league since. Spent 9 seasons with the Saints. He was very instrumental in developing offensive linemen such as Patrick Paul, Austin Jackson, and Chop Robinson even. Chop Robinson was a standout rookie last year for the Dolphins. It's going to be a huge hole in that offensive line for the Dolphins, who now have to find another way to protect their quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa, who is no stranger to concussions and injuries. So this it's going to be very difficult, especially to replace such a very influential and highly regarded offensive lineman as Armstead. Oh yeah, Brett Favre has been involved in a welfare scandal in Mississippi. A judge dismissed the lawsuit by the Mississippi governor, who was reported by the Mississippi periodical Mississippi Today for using welfare funds to fund a Southern Miss volleyball stadium. It kind of got a lot of traction last year in particular, and the author of this story actually won a Pulitzer, which is pretty crazy. The judge dismissed the lawsuit today, but there is plans apparently to take it to the Supreme Court of the state. So we'll have to wait and see how that works out. But yeah, it's still not a very good look for Brett Favre in that regard. It's just very interesting to see an update on that case. One a very unusual signing today out of Carolina. They apparently have signed a college basketball player to be a tight end. His name is Colin Granger. He played 5 years of basketball at Ohio, Western Carolina, and Coastal Carolina. He will compete for starting time actually with Carolina's tight end room. He is a 6'8" specimen, 245 pounds. So definitely very tight end material, and of course with his basketball skills, he will have versatility and the flexibility probably to have a lot of good hands and basketball skills. We've seen tight ends such as like Demetrius Harris with the Chiefs a few years ago, who was a former basketball player himself, have succeed. And we've seen a lot of, tight ends that were basketball players like Tony Gonzalez reach the Hall of Fame. The only downgrade apparently is that Granger hasn't played football since the 8th grade, and he is 5 years removed from high school. So since he is 5 years removed from high school, he's available as a free agent, and he was eligible to be drafted last year, but he wasn't drafted. I don't think anyone would have expected it. But this is they are trying to experiment, and this apparently isn't the first time that Dave Canales and Dan Morgan, the coach and manager at Carolina, have experimented with a former basketball player. George Font actually is another example. When they were in Seattle together, he played basketball at Western Kentucky and football. He was a hybrid tackle tight end and currently still in Seattle. It's not exactly he was with the Jets and Texans actually, but apparently it's not a new thing for Dave Canales to try and experiment with. We'll have to see how this goes, but it's a very eye-opening type move. Definitely someone to try to compete. I wouldn't expect him to get starting tight end, considering they have the likes of Tommy Tremble, Jatavian Sanders, Jordan Matthews, and a couple of others in that tight end room. Tommy Tremble in particular stands out. So I don't think he'll get a starting tight end spot. If he does, that would be quite the story. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on around training camp, probably. And that's kind of all the news as far as things go. Not a lot to talk about as the draft is kind of slowly crawling towards us. We wait to find out other news, like with Aaron Rodgers, who just still hasn't signed with anyone, even though reports are that Pittsburgh is still probably the place he'll go. Yeah, NFL news is just at a crawl at this point, but the draft is when things start to get really heated up again. And if you guys want a preview of things after the draft, kind of a recap of off season for each division or something like that, let me know in the comments below, and um, or get in touch with us. We would love to hear from you and hear kind of thoughts on how we can improve the show and what kind of content y'all would like to hear. All right, let's head pitch side and go into the EFL Championship, and we have a lot of things to cover. I want to cover first some news that has been pretty prominent in the last week or so, particularly with two different clubs. One is the Blackburn Rovers situation. So, if you don't know, Blackburn Rovers has had a group of fans officially ask their owners and the director of football to not attend any more of their matches. That started last week. Blackburn put out a statement addressing the situation, basically said they refused to do so. They put out a video basically addressing the situation about how they really didn't think they could because they have like match day duties and other sorts of stuff they have to do on match day. Basically, it was a lot of talk about why John Eustace left for Derby County. This is just a very toxic situation. A lot of fans have been wanting Venky's, the meat product company that has owned Blackburn Rovers since about 2010, to leave for a while, and this just kind of has really done it in, especially regarding how transfer business has gone. Especially in the winter one, where Blackburn, when they did sign someone, it was on free or on loan, I believe. It wasn't anything significant if they did sign anyone. I can't quite remember, but it was very poor showing, especially for a club that was in the playoffs with John Eustace for some of the season and then kind of fell out of it. And, I mean, to be fair, they were kind of on a skid when Eustace was there at the club before he left. But, I mean, there's a lot of rumors that Eustace left because of this situation where the owners were not treating the club well. It's incensed a lot of the supporters, and you watched the game against Middlesbrough on Friday last weekend, and it was a very toxic atmosphere with people chanting, "We want Vinkies out." Just a lot of protests, and it's a very valid point by the fans, I think. They really want their club to have an ownership that's focused on trying to get themselves out of a rut. They just feel like the club is stagnating. And this is a club that, I mean, back in its day, won a Premier League trophy. Now they're kind of just here sitting in the championship. And yes, they're better than where they were last year at this time, where last year they were fighting relegation and barely got out of it. Meanwhile, this year they're mid-table, still within shout of the playoffs, but it's becoming very unlikely at this point. It's just a very weird time at the club that the owners need to sell the club, and there does not seem to be a point at where they will sell the club. And even on the pitch, it's pretty dismal as they have not won in 5 straight games, I believe it is, since Valeri Ishmael took over a little over a month ago now. He's only gotten 1 point out of it. This is very poor stuff from Blackburn, and it's sad to see a club go through this kind of stuff. It's also sad to see stuff like Sheffield Wednesday is going through. They also are dealing with pretty bad ownership. Chansiri, their owner, has been a pretty bad owner for a long time. He's the chairman of the club. They barely today just got out of having a 3 transfer window embargo placed on the club, which would almost effectively kill the club in a lot of ways, I think. All because they didn't pay their players in March, and they just paid them today, apparently. So they just got out of it at the last minute. If you listen to a lot of Sheffield Wednesday fans, they are upset. They are mad. They want this guy gone. I mean, this has been a pattern for years with him that he just won't pay his players. He sold the Hillsborough Stadium, which is a very iconic stadium in English football, to himself. It's a very weird situation that apparently this is not the first time he has not paid players, that he has had embargoes placed on the club. I'm sure there's going to be some kind of penalty placed on if Sheffield Wednesday. It'll be considered better than a 3 transfer window embargo, because if that had been placed on the club, no one would have wanted to come to the club and be a manager there. They're looking at Danny Roll, a manager who got them out of a relegation scrap last year and helped them survive. Coming onto the scene out of nowhere, he's been linked to a lot of jobs for this next season. So he's probably going to leave. He looked very defeated after Wednesday's 1-0 loss to Hull City on Saturday. It just looked like he's done with this club. And there's links to him going to like RB Leipzig. There's Southampton that's also very interested in him. A lot of clubs would eagerly take Danny Roll because he's done a fantastic job with Wednesday. It's a very sad to see a club that just will not listen to their fans, will not do anything about the concerns that have been raised. I don't think there have been any protests from what I have heard. The fans are wanting this to happen. I mean, you can tell, go on social media. Everyone was saying wanting Chanseri out. It's getting bad out there for Sheffield Wednesday, and unless this owner finally decides to sell the club, and I don't think he will, they might be stuck for a while. Things might have to get worse before they get better. And for such a iconic, historic club as Sheffield Wednesday, that is not promising to hear, especially for fans that have long suffered under this owner. So let's get to a preview of the midweek game. And we've got some big matches coming up that could determine a lot of things at the end of the season. Let's start with oh well, Blackburn versus Sheffield Wednesday at Ewood Park. So this could be very fascinating. We just talked about both of these clubs and the situations off of the pitch. On the pitch, Sheffield Wednesday lost 1-0 to Hull City on a 94th minute goal by Charlie Hughes. By the way, what a goal it was. Great header into the top left, I believe, and there was nothing the Wednesday keeper could do about it. He headed it in from the right side of the goal. It was spectacular. Go, if you have a chance, go look at it. It was a great goal. And so that is another 3 points dropped by Wednesday, and their playoff chances are fading fast. They are now 13th with a very bad goal difference. Even though they're within 8 points of the playoffs, with 6 to go, it looks unlikely. Meanwhile, Blackburn Rovers, they got blitzed by Middlesbrough in the first 10 minutes, with Borough scoring 2 quick goals. And then after that, really dominating and making sure Blackburn didn't have any great quality chances, and really just saw the game out from there, which is all they really needed to do. Blackburn dropped another 3 points as well when they were within 5 points of the playoffs. So now they are within 8 points. So this is not looking very good at all for either club. It pretty much, unless a miracle happens, this looks like it's a game that will probably decide whoever loses this will probably be officially eliminated from playoff contention. Neither team is in a really good run of form. Wednesday isn't a better one, even though they've lost 2 of their last 3 games. They at least have picked up 7 points out of the last 5. So, I mean, it's not dreadful, but still, it's not the best either way to finish the season, especially considering a month ago they were right in the thick of things for the playoffs. Yeah, I really could see this going either way. I could also see this being a draw. So I guess I could say I would favor Wednesday because Blackburn are just in such poor form, and I mean dreadful form. Valerian Ishmael just doesn't seem to know what he's doing at the helm of that club, and that's the last thing they need to encourage fans to get behind them. So if I had to pick, I guess I would go Wednesday, um, or a draw. I could see this being a draw too. Wednesday, though, feel they're more likely to win if I had to pick a winner. So moving on from there, we head into a very tasty game with Bristol City hosting West Bromwich Albion. West Brom came into the weekend 6th place with a 2 point cushion on Bristol City and Middlesbrough. And then they go into their game hosting Sunderland, where they dominated so much of the ball, had some good chances that they could not put into the back of the net, and that is a huge problem for West Brom lately. And they lost another game. Losing and drawing seems to be the theme of West Brom's season this year. I mean, you can't do that if you want the playoffs. You need to pick up as many points as possible now, as we have so few games remaining. Meanwhile, Bristol City took care of their business against fellow playoff contenders Watford. 2 quick goals within 5 minutes of each other. Matt McCrory and Naki Wells both scoring quick goals, and they just looked the better side for most of the game until Watford got a goal back in the 80th minute from Doumbia, and he got his first goal, but it made it a tighter finish than it needed to be. But that's kind of Bristol City for you at this point. They are very good at defending, especially when they have their backs to the wall, and especially at Ashton Gate, where they are almost impenetrable at this point. So with that, Bristol City actually jumped into 6th place with the win. Meanwhile, West Brom fell all the way to 8th, I should say. They are 3 points back of Bristol City. A win in this game would tie them on points with Bristol City, and I think it would actually take them 6th on goal difference. Yeah, it would, because Bristol City are not very. They have an okay goal difference at +8. It's not spectacular, but still, it's okay, because Bristol City are just so good at defending for the most part. So it's a hard one to call. It's a very crucial game in terms of the playoff race. This could go either way. I mean, if you look on form, though, Bristol City are in much better form. They are scoring more, even if it's not a lot. But at the same time, I mean, scoring is the problem for West Brom. It really is. And there's a lot of dissent, starting to be a lot of chatter among West Brom fans about Tony Mowbray and his tactics and how it just doesn't seem like there's much going on in terms of what Tony Mowbray wants to do at the attacking positions. I watched a vlog talking about the tactics, and they point out that they need a target man, and Josh Madja is that target man. He's not in he's not in the squad right now because he's injured. It feels like Tony Mowbray, who is a very respected manager in the championship and in general, you'd think he would adjust things, but he hasn't, and I think that might be West Brom's undoing. I will probably go for a 1-0 Bristol City win, but I wouldn't be shocked if West Brom somehow came back or somehow they actually decided to show up in this game because they're fighting for their playoff lives and maybe got a draw, maybe dent the hopes of Bristol City by a lot. But if I had to go based off of form and how both teams look right now, Bristol City is definitely the candidate to pick to win this game. Another game that is important in terms of not only the promotion race, but also the relegation race is Derby County hosting Burnley. Burnley got a crucial 2-1 win over Coventry City, and with that result and other results, like Leeds drawing at Luton Town and Sheffield United losing at Oxford United, Burnley went on top of the table as a result, and now are looking down on everyone else. Meanwhile, Derby County are only a point off of the relegation zone after their 4-game winning streak was snapped at the hands of Swansea City and a 1-0 defeat. And it's just Burnley are too good. Burnley are very good defense, especially at home. But in general, they are very good if they score. They are good at seeing a game out. And that is a lot of the issue I think people have with them because they are so boring. Well, they seem boring because they just know how to close a game out and use the dark arts to make sure teams cannot come back. And that is something Derby County has been better of late. I mean, what a shock John Eustace is there. He knows how to get you out of a relegation scrap, if nothing else. But still, they are not a great side, and they do not pose much of a threat up front. Jerry Yates is okay. He just isn't consistent. I don't see them getting one past Burnley. If they pulled a Luton Town or an Oxford, that would be something else. It's just the bottom sides seem to be winning weird games against the top sides. And I mean, that's the championship for you, but I just don't see Derby County getting past a very staunch Burnley defense. And even though this is at Derby County, I could see this easily being a 1-0 Burnley win that feels scrappy and just they get that one goal and it's it. I would probably pick Burnley, but if Derby County somehow pulled out the draw or the win, I wouldn't be shocked either because championship. Norwich City versus Sunderland. Norwich City took a huge hit. This is another one where the bottom side's won against an upper half side. Norwich lost 2-1 to Plymouth Argyle, the team at the bottom of the championship, with a brace from Ryan Hardy. Meanwhile, Sunderland, well, like we talked about earlier, they got the 1-0 win over West Brom with the Trey Hume goal. It was a spectacular free kick from the edge of the left side of the box. It curled it all the way to the right post, and the West Brom keeper should have probably gotten it sooner if he had found the ball, but apparently he's kind of struggled too. Anyways, Sunderland got the 3 points. It looks like they are pretty locked into fourth, even though they are starting to look up because, everyone else is starting to fall apart at the top, including Leeds United. We'll get to them in a bit. It's going to be at home. Norwich City are a much better team at home, and Sunderland, they're pretty good on the road. They're a good playoff team. They're very solid. I mean, we saw with West Brom, they were able to defend and buffer a lot of possession that West Brom had and the chances West Brom had. Honestly, it would not surprise me if somehow Norwich were to nick this. Because A, they are better at home. B, Josh Sargent is a man on fire right now. Even if they aren't great on defense, they still they can surprise you at home, especially. And Josh Sargent being in form, that could be something, even though I don't see him getting past the likes of Chris Rigg and Luke 09 and all that. It wouldn't shock me if somehow Norwich did this, but I would definitely say Sunderland should win this and probably end Norwich's playoff hopes right there with that defeat. Because with 5 to go and 8 points at least off the playoffs, there's no, or maybe more, maybe at the end of this week, of the midweek, it's probably more like maybe 9 or 11 points off of the playoffs. With 5 to go, that's almost impossible. And they would have to win all the rest of their games and hope for a miracle from the rest of the teams. Though at this point, anything is possible in the championship, but it seems very unlikely. 11 points in 5 games, you'd be very much perfect. Yeah, a Sunderland win basically seals the deal almost for Norwich City in terms of just staying in the championship and being out of the playoff discussion. That Plymouth loss hurt them so much. And then, of course, you've got to defend against the likes of Wilson Isidore, Enzo Lafie. They're Sunderland just have so many ways to hurt you. Mayenda, it just feels like even though Norwich have the very good chance of nicking this, I don't see it. I'm going to say Sunderland probably win this one. Preston and Cardiff. Preston is hosting them at Deepdale. Cardiff got a 0-0 draw with QPR. I mean, it's definitely a point that they could absolutely use to get out of the zone, and it keeps them within striking distance of safety by 1 point. Which, if they somehow get this result and maybe, a Derby County loss, they could jump to safety. So it's very possible. But Preston, meanwhile, they also drew with Stoke City. Probably should have lost this game against Stoke City on the weekend. But yeah, these two teams, they look like teams headed in maybe opposite directions. Preston, they're just so inconsistent in general and just kind of mid. They're not good. They're not bad. They're just okay. They can score occasionally when they need to, but they're not the best at it either. And I mean, this is Paul Hickenbottom's first year. Who knows what this project is going to look like in a year or two? But Preston right now just look very bleh. Meanwhile, Cardiff City, like, they got a clean sheet for the second time in I think 15 starts I saw. Like, that's about it. And it's just so much they need to do to kind of stay alive. I mean, they're putting up a fight. Don't get me wrong. Like, this isn't like them laying down and dying like Plymouth and Luton have for most of the season. But still, I mean, they've had stretches where they've looked good, but I could see this easily being a draw. This game just screams draw at me because both teams are so meh, and just no one seems to want. Neither of these teams seem to want to do what they need to do. Preston for like maybe a playoff push. That's pretty much almost over. Not mathematically, but it's almost over for them. And Cardiff City are still fighting for the life of the relegation zone. I mean, I could totally be wrong. Cardiff probably are desperate to get out, and if they could use that desperation to get a win, all the better for them. I don't know. This game just screams draw to me because both of these teams. Maybe it's just because like they tend to draw, particularly Preston do, but yeah, I could easily see this being a draw and being probably the more boring game of the midweek. Sheffield United, they host Millwall, and Millwall are actually starting to make a surprise push for the playoffs. How? I don't know. But, they're a scrappy team. Like, it's not like they're bad. They've won 3 of their last 5 with losses sandwiched in between, a couple of wins. But, they're a consistent team that, stays steady. Typical championship team. They're within 6 points of the playoffs. A win could easily put them right in the conversation. And that would be very fascinating going into the weekend. But they're facing a Sheffield United team that lost to Oxford United. Meanwhile, Millwall did beat Pompey over the weekend 2-1. So that helps their playoff push for sure. I just don't see it. This is at home. Sheffield United haven't been greatest at home lately, but they're still very stingy. And I'm very sure. I mean, Chris Wilder came out this weekend already and said he's mad and that he wants to. He made it very clear that that performance against Oxford was unacceptable, and I would not be shocked if that lit a fire under the belt of Sheffield United, and they absolutely destroy Millwall and wreck any chances they thought they had of the playoffs. But Millwall are such a scrappy team. I don't know. Ivanovic has been a very good signing for the Lions. He's just been a great signing for them up top. He's given them a bit of an attacking threat that I don't think they had last year, and they're very scrappy, especially at home defensively. I mean, Josh Coburn has been a decent signing for them on loan from Middlesbrough. I just don't see. I could see this being a scrappy game, but that's kind of a game that Sheffield United's willing to play. I think it would be a 2-1 Sheffield United, maybe. I think Sheffield United is going to come out and want to win this game badly to get right back on top of the table, or at least keep within distance of Burnley, because a loss and a Burnley win, it puts them at a 4-point gap. So that would not be any good at all. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes, but I don't think Sheffield United should lose this. If they do, we need to maybe start having a conversation about Burnley maybe being title favorites. It's going to be very interesting, especially because this game has implications for both the playoff push and the promotion race. It's so fascinating seeing how many games are just affecting so many races right now. Speaking of affecting races, Stoke hosts Luton Town in a relegation 6-pointer. Stoke are 1 point off of the drop, with a draw against Preston, like we talked about earlier. Meanwhile, Luton Town scraped together a draw against Leeds, and that's a game actually that some Luton players were saying they hoped they could win it. And I mean, they had chances to. It's not like they didn't. I mean, Leeds were definitely the better side in the second half, probably, and probably should have won it, but they didn't because it's Leeds in at the end of the year. But yeah, it was a good performance by Luton Town. Isaiah Jones scored, very good for him. His first goal in a Luton shirt, I think it is. And meanwhile, Mark Robins is desperately just trying to keep this Stoke City squad above water. A loss here could drop Stoke into the relegation zone, and that would be something else considering Stoke have not. I don't think they've been to League One for a while, but it's a Stoke side that is very scrappy. Can Luton Town do it on a rainy day at Stoke? That's what we are about to find out. And I mean, if all 3 points are secured by Luton Town, they would be 41 points. They would be tied on points. Actually, excuse me. Stoke are 2 points above the drop. So a win here actually ties Luton Town. Well, they'd be 42 points with that. So a win here would be huge for Luton Town because of that draw against Leeds United. So we'll have to see what other results do, but this could actually be a very underrated game considering the stakes involved. But also at the same time, I could easily see them both drawing this, just because like Luton had such a high performance against Leeds, and then they have to face Stoke, and it just doesn't feel as the same to them. But also fair play to them, they have been playing better as of late. They're on a 4-game unbeaten run actually. They've gotten 8 points out of their last 4, which is not bad considering, they've been bad for most of the season. And Stoke, I mean, they've gotten 8 out of their last 4 as well. They haven't scraped together an unbeaten run, but still, it's a very, very interesting match. I would probably say this could be a draw. It doesn't scream draw like Preston Cardiff, but that would probably be the most championship result of all time, considering both teams need to win this to, stay alive. And a win by Stoke here, to be fair, would keep them, it would guarantee a lot towards safety. They'd be 46 points. I think they could be at least 5 points clear of safety with 5 to play. So that would be huge breathing room for them. So lots at stake here, but I would not be shocked if this ended in a draw. And if I had to pick a winner, if we look at form, I wouldn't be shocked if Luton won this and pulled this out. Maybe pull Stoke right into the relegation zone, depending on results. So that would be something, wouldn't it? But we'll have to see. I'm fascinated by this game, honestly, because it feels so even, yet it doesn't feel even. So who knows? It's the championship. That's kind of why this run-in is always so fascinating. Watford take on Hull City. Watford, of course, we talked about, lost the playoff 6-pointer with Bristol City. If they had won that, they probably would have been in the same spot Bristol City are in right now. But Watford have just been kind of fading out lately, and they kind of just haven't been the same lately since, I don't know, since the Tom Cleverley news came out that he almost got sacked. Meanwhile, Hull City, they got the winner against Sheffield Wednesday. I think they're the ones I was thinking of earlier when I was talking about Stoke. No, they're 3 points off the drop, actually. They're right above Stoke. That's huge breathing room with that win over Sheffield Wednesday. And now they're playing a team that has seen their season kind of fade. Hull City, when they want to, they can scrape and claw and be pesky. They've scored 8 of their points out of the last 5 games, while Watford have only gotten 4 out of their last 5. I don't know. Hull City have absolutely looked better attacking wise, and by their standards, that's not a lot. To be fair, their game before Saturday, they lost by an own goal, so they're capable of that kind of result. This feels like a draw. It really does. It doesn't feel like both teams could lose. They don't want to lose this. They could play very cagey Watford do have the capability, though, of scoring, and against teams that have bad defenses. So, I mean, they absolutely could pull out a win here and, make things interesting for themselves. They're 7 points off playoffs right now. So, a win would maybe do something. If not, their season is probably over with 5 to play. I don't know. This feels like a draw to me. I don't feel like either team in my head screams winner, but it could be a 1-0 result, and I would not be shocked if it went either way. Hull need the result, though, to stay safe. Watford, I think we could probably safely say they'll probably be in the championship next season. And I don't think that's a probably they will be in the championship next season. But if they want any semblance of their season staying alive, they need the 3 points. But and I don't know, it just doesn't look or feel likely based on how they've played lately. They just looked uninspired until the last 10 minutes against Bristol City. So, yeah, I'm going to go for a draw on this one. And the last one on the Tuesday docket for midweek fixtures is Middlesbrough hosting Leeds United. We talked about how Middlesbrough pretty much dominated their game against Blackburn on Friday, 2-0 result. Meanwhile, Leeds got the disappointing 1-1 draw that saw them drop out of the top two for the first time since December. That's something I don't think we would have thought of a month ago would happen. I think they were 7 points coming into March, clear of everyone else at the top of the table. So yeah, they've turned it around fast, and they haven't. I mean, they're still on an unbeaten run, but they haven't played that great lately. Meanwhile, Middlesbrough are on a 4-game unbeaten run. They haven't played their best ball at times, but they are definitely starting to come together, starting to score goals and look more like the team we saw at the beginning of the season. And that's what you need from a playoff team right now at the business end of the season. You need to start winning games, winning points, and this is the real test for them. This is, I think, their biggest test of this run of games that they've had lately. So if they want to really show that they're for real in this playoff race, any points in this game would be huge for them. It is two teams that have very good scoring impetus at the top. Joel Perot is no joke. I do think, though, that Middlesbrough have improved at the back lately, and that's good. Is it enough against a team like Leeds United? Who knows? I don't know. I could see this easily being a draw. I could easily see this just being a draw because both teams they've had crazy games lately, including last year when Leeds came to town into Middlesbrough, and it was a 4-3 thriller. I think it could have probably been a draw considering a couple of calls that went Leeds' way. But this is going to be a good game, I think. Probably the game of the week, honestly, besides maybe Bristol City West Brom. And yeah, this is a tough game to call. Both teams like to attack. Middlesbrough like to hold the ball a bit more, though. If Aiden Morris and Payne Hackney can win the midfield, that Middlesbrough could win this game. They absolutely could win this game. This is such a tough game to call. It could go either way. I wouldn't be shocked if it went either way. I wouldn't be shocked if it went to a draw. I really don't know. I'm just gonna sit for a 2-2 draw and call it a day. But I would not be shocked if either side got all 3 points. If Middlesbrough get all 3 points with 5 to play, I think we can easily start talking about them as serious playoff contenders and a team that is very much in red hot form. And I think you can then quiet the talk that is going around about them right now of, well, they've played easy games because after this they play Millwall, which is no joke either, and they are also trying to get back in the playoff hunt. So this game would, I think, go a long way in getting people onto the Middlesbrough to the playoffs train. Okay, let's go to the Wednesday games. We have Oxford United hosting QPR. Oxford United, of course, got the result at home against Sheffield United. QPR got the 0-0 draw against Cardiff. Oxford they play better at home. There is something about being at the Kassam Stadium that just makes them play better. And QPR, I think, are faltering, and I think this is perfect. I think Oxford they feel like the better team in this game. I just do not feel QPR right now at all. Their last 5 games, loss, draw, loss, draw. Their form just is so inconsistent. Meanwhile, for Oxford, they're pretty inconsistent as well, but at least they picked up wins. Draw, loss, win, loss, win. So I mean, this absolutely could go either way. It's the championship, of course. It could go either way. But if I had to pick a winner, I actually would pick Oxford. And if Oxford get all 3 points, I think we can say they're probably safe. Right now they have 45 points. 48 would take them to the likes of Preston and Swansea. And I think a lot of people already consider them almost safe. I think you would have to get 50 points probably to officially call yourself safe. But yeah, this feels like an Oxford win coming. Of course, watch it not be an Oxford win and watch it be like QPR pull out a 1-0 win or something like that because it's the championship. Anyways, Swansea taking on Plymouth at home in Wales. Plymouth, of course, getting the shocker of last week. Well, not the one of the shockers of last weekend with the 2-1 win over Norwich City. Meanwhile, Swansea besting Derby late. With a 1-0 win, and that almost secures, I think, like I said with Oxford, I think 50 points probably guarantees safety in this league, so a win here would probably guarantee safety. Plymouth, meanwhile, are trying to get out of the cellar of this relegation scrap, and they're being as scrappy as they usually are, right around this time. When they feel that relegation battle starting to tighten, they always seem to just turn up a notch. And Muric has definitely gotten this Plymouth team to play a lot better than they were under Wayne Rooney. Ryan Hardy, like I said, he didn't get in the match team of the weekend, but I think he might have or should have. With the brace, he had a couple of fantastic goals against Norwich. Swansea, they're very solid. They had the draw against Leeds a couple of weeks ago, and now they have the win over Derby County. They look like a very solid team. And if there's a team that I think maybe could stop Plymouth in their tracks a bit, it would be Swansea, just because they have a knack for showing up against the lower teams, and sometimes against the bigger teams, but not always. But it's the championship. If the relegation teams keep playing like they have been, that could be a very interesting relegation scrap come the end of the season. But um, I don't know. I just feel like Swansea should win this. If they don't, I wouldn't be shocked because Plymouth are kind of starting to pick up steam a little bit. They've picked up 7 points in the last four, but still, they need to be careful. Swansea do, but I feel like they should win this. They've got the scoring capability when they're on it. When they aren't, they're pretty bad. And if Plymouth can somehow, find a couple of good passes to unblock Ryan Hardy, I would not be shocked if Plymouth got all 3 points and made life very uncomfortable at the bottom of the table for a lot of teams. Because a win here would put them at 40 points, and Derby County and everyone else does not want to see that, because then that means everyone's within 1 or 2 points of safety almost if some results go right. So it would be an insanely tight relegation battle going into the last 5 weeks. And then finally, a last kind of playoff implications game is Coventry City hosting Portsmouth. Pompey got the 2-1 loss at Millwall on the weekend. Meanwhile, Coventry lost 2-1 to Burnley. Coventry were very competitive against Burnley. That was not a game that Burnley dominated until they got the second goal. After that, Burnley definitely felt more in control, even though Coventry had a lot of chances. Burnley just used a lot of their dark arts to get that win. And I don't think Portsmouth, particularly on the road, have those dark arts. But if somehow Portsmouth were to find the winner here, I think they beat Coventry last time, earlier this season. If somehow Portsmouth were to find a winner here, that would be huge, like in the playoff race, because like Portsmouth, I think, are pretty much out of it. They're at 45 points. They're nowhere close to the playoff hunt. But I mean, a win that gets them within 2 points of safety, and I think that'd be huge. And of course, all the bottom teams are playing desperate, and I think everyone thought that Portsmouth, when they beat Leeds a few weeks ago, right before the international break, I think everyone thought they were going to be okay, and now they're right back to being scared of the relegation zone again. Coventry just feel like the better team. Coventry, I think, could win this 2-1. And Coventry fans, I think, desperately want a playoff win because now they've seen, okay, we're out of the playoff places. And now we want to know what the response is. Coventry have actually lost their 3 of their last 4. To be fair to them, though, 2 of those losses have come against Sheffield United and Burnley, so top 2 teams. And now they're coming into a set of fixtures that is a lot more favorable. So, and this is the start of that. So if Coventry didn't make it, it would be an all-time collapse. But I don't see them doing that here. I think a 2-1 win would probably be the result for Coventry. and they get right back into the playoff hunt, and they stay themselves right at the playoff hunt. A loss here, though, for Coventry, that could be damaging depending on results by Borough and Bristol City, because 4 points off, that feels huge and significant at this point. So yeah, if they don't win, that could spell some trouble for Coventry. But I don't think so. I think Coventry will pull it off. And with that, we do come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for stopping by and giving us a listen. We would appreciate any support. Go follow us on all our social medias. We are on YouTube and TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter or X. If you could give us a like, a follow, subscribe, that would be great. Any support is always appreciated. We thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this full episode, and hope to see you in the next one.